Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. Today I have decided to film what it's like to be a HCA. And for those of you that don't know, I have a job at the hospital as a healthcare assistant. And not everybody knows what that is. I think people probably know what that is more than what people think an occupational therapist is, but I figured why not? And also I figured it was a video, and also I figured then people might actually understand what it's kind of like to work in the NHS from a nursing perspective right now, because it's a nursing job, but I'm not qualified as a nurse. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get started. So this is my uniform. I have my little fob watch and my little badge, and then I have pockets at the bottom and I have my pens in them and all sorts, and scissors and tape measures and all that kind of jazz. I have a dress. I have one dress now, thank goodness, and I have two tunics and two trousers. I need to give the dress back, but we'll get to that when I get a chance. So what it's like to be a HCA, I have a piece of paper with my ideas written on, but the main thing is it's both crazy mad, smelly, but the most fulfilling job like ever. And is it more fulfilling than an OT? I couldn't really tell you because I've only had it from a student perspective, but I would probably say no, because I want to be an OT, so that's kind of like my little, that's what I want to do, so I would say that's probably more fulfilling for myself. But it is so lovely and you get so much patient engagement, and I just love it. And I mean, one of the reasons why I really like it is because I kind of feel like I'm being let loose. I don't feel like I've got strings attached to me because I'm not a student, and I've got like the training in place and things to do stuff like what I'm doing. It's not a difficult role, so it kind of doesn't make you think that hard. Like, it doesn't, you don't feel at the end of a shift mentally tired, you feel physically tired. That's the difference. And I feel as my role as an OT student, when I've been on placements, I've felt both physically and mentally tired. And I think that's the key difference for me in the sort of how I feel at the end of the day. So the day can be super long. So I'm on a rotation called bank, which means that I can pick and choose the shifts that kind of fit in with my schedule. I'm on a 0-hour contract kind of thing. But those people that are employed by the wards on the hospital, they will often end up doing like 13-hour days. And I could do 13-hour days if I wanted to, but I am human and don't. But you can find people doing a shift from 7 AM in the morning to 8 PM at night with like half an hour break. And they don't do this 5 days a week, they probably would do 3. So it can be, and this is the same for nursing staff, it can be a super long shift. So when they say long shifts, that's what they mean. I tend to do like morning shifts, some afternoon shifts. I haven't done a night shift because I chose not to, and I've basically decided that maybe one would be kind of cool to do, but I don't really want to mess up my sleeping schedule or my routine or anything to do a night shift, regardless of how much more I might get paid if I did them. So often as well, like, I'll start my shift at 7 or whatever and finish at maybe 2:30 or 3, depending on if I decide to take a break or not, or if I get a chance to, more to the point. And sometimes even if my shift is supposed to finish at 2:30, I won't end up leaving till 3 anyway, for so many different reasons. And I don't always get paid for that, but that's just me not kind of being fussed about that kind of little bit. It's only 20 minutes or whatever, and I would much rather the patients were happy and safe than me get paid for 20 minutes. It just doesn't seem worth it. So earlier I said that you can have a morning shift and an evening shift. A morning shift I tend to find is more hectic, chaotic, increasingly stressful. That is because you have to get almost 13 to 14, sometimes slightly more, sometimes less, depending on whichever ward you're on, patients ready for the day. So that means getting them washed, getting them dressed, cleaning them up, getting them breakfast, getting them out of bed, taking them to the toilet. During this like 6 different activities that you have to do with every patient, you also have the other things like you might get called to another patient, a patient might need to go to theatre, so you have to pat slide them, which is basically a big board which is kind of flippy, and you would take the patient from their bed across on this slide to a trolley type bed. It's not as fun as it sounds, it's really not, and often you need 4 people, so 2 at the head on either side and 2 at the feet on either side, to slide them across. It's not a slide, it's more of a, I don't know, it's not a slide though, it's not the kids kind of traditional slide. You might have a patient that suddenly becomes really ill, so you then have to go and cater for them. You might have a patient that falls over, hopefully not. It varies between wards, and sometimes you could be on a one-to-one, so you might not actually be able to leave that patient because there's been sort of a risk assessment completed, and you have to be with them all the time, which basically means you can't really go and help somebody else, which makes their job even more difficult. So obviously there's the typical sort of getting a patient washed and dressed, and after a while that just becomes like second nature to you. I've been spotted that I'm a therapist by nursing staff that have been like, are you a therapist? Like, are you training to be a physio or an OT? And I was like, yes, I am. Because I'm apparently, in the way I tend to help people, I try and get them to at least wash their face. Imagine you are paralysed, you have paralysis from like you're sort of just under your arms down, so you basically cannot move your body. In this instance it can be quite difficult because I have to basically wash the whole patient and help them move themselves or move them if they can't, and sometimes I have to do that by myself because everybody else is with another patient that needs even more help than this one. And so just even getting them to wash their face is hopefully a little bit of fulfilling opportunity for them. I know I would certainly, if I was in their position, want to, if I have use of my hands, want to wash my face and my hands myself. So I try and encourage them if they want to. I don't push them to, but if they want to wash their face and their hands if they can. But it can be obviously time consuming than doing that, but that's just something that I've decided that I would much rather them do to help themselves. But again, that's sort of the therapist within me trying to encourage the patient to be as independent as possible. So not only did I mention breakfast, like you have to give them breakfast or dinner or lunch or whatever, there's also the tasks of getting their menus in, there's also the tasks of getting it out to them, and in some cases feeding them, if the patient needs help with feeding, if it's pureed or not. So that can be difficult to at first it was very difficult to do. I didn't feel very comfortable, but I've got kind of used to that over the time. You also have to make sure that you're not giving a patient food if they're nil by mouth. I know that's happened to somebody that I know on the ward, and so their surgery then had to get cancelled for the next day. It's an easy mistake to make, so you have to be super careful not to do that. So there's also the task of making patients' beds. This can often be the most stressful part. I was working a shift on a Sunday once and laundry didn't arrive until 11:30. So that meant technically I had about 30 minutes to get every patient washed, dressed and their beds made, because I believe the kind of target is midday, which sounds quite late, but we start getting patients washed up, dressed at about 8 AM, and if you have 13 people to help whilst doing everything else, whilst call bells are going off, taking people to the toilet, getting water, getting rid of water, disposing of like human feces and things like that, making sure you yourself are hygienically clean and things like that, it's just very difficult and quite time consuming. So sometimes beds don't get made before midday, but that's just the way it is. But they're really easy to do, and actually the most difficult and annoying part is getting the bed up to hip height for me, because I'm quite tall. Often, like in terms of making sure your back is okay and doesn't get killed, so to speak, from the job, it doesn't hurt or you don't injure it from the job, you have to put certain things at certain heights to help you, and beds just take forever, they can be broken, all this, very typical NHS. Finally, there is the sort of the support side, and this is, to me, is the most important thing. Sitting with a patient, holding their hand, comforting them if they've been told bad news, they're kind of annoyed because theatre's been cancelled for them, which often happens. And imagine you've sort of psyched yourself up to go and have surgery, which isn't very pleasant in the first instance, and you're maybe sort of 80 odd. This could, you know, it's quite a shocking, daunting idea and task. So often I will come across patients that are maybe upset, or they've been told they can't go home yet and that's all they really want to do. I have worked on various different wards. I've kind of worked only on 5 wards so far, orthopedics being the main one that I've worked on, partly because I kind of know the staff on there now, but also I really enjoyed placement as an OT on there, so I kind of wanted to see what it was like from a HCA perspective. Each ward is different in the sense of sort of how you are respected. Some wards, they like, thank you so much for all you're doing, just honestly it's fine, don't worry, take your time. Some wards you have a more maybe aggressive patients who are really not happy, and obviously there are wards where their patients are elderly and they may have dementia, and that's completely different. You kind of, I've gotten used to now the sort of how do I put this, physical like scratches and hits and punches on various different wards. Now often these are patients with dementia, and so they have no control really over what they're doing, and so you just ignore it. But some of the time you know I have been called like names that I won't mention, and I have been punched a couple of times by patients that knew exactly what they were doing, and this is just something that's part of the job, and it's just as it is. The pay is not too bad. A couple of you may be wondering about that, so I shall tell you. Pay's just under 10 quid an hour. There are certain rates that are higher over night shifts, and at weekends there is like a percentage increasing, I don't know, one of the two, but that's just the job, and to be honest it pays much better than it did when I was working as a waitress, so to me it really doesn't bother me. I'm going to end this video here. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about anything, like what the typical days or anything like that, post them in the comments box down below, and I will try and answer them as best as I can. I'll also put in the iCard, which I don't know which side it will be on, my video to my OT, what it's like as a student. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!